Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is Jim Nichols. And noted artist and investigator, lecturer Jim Nichols has produced an extraordinary body of UFO illustrations that have been published internationally in magazines, articles, books, and the internet. His art was routinely featured on the History Channel's UFO Hunters, as well in his art book, Case Files Revealed. He shares the untold stories behind 40 of his most dramatic UFO illustrations based on actual accounts. His book is available through his website, which is www.jimnicholsufo.net, and you can also go to the webmatrix.net/Jim Nichols UFO. And Jim is also winner of the EBE-Awards at 2010's International UFO Conference in Laughlin, Nevada. And for his video documentary about Nazi saucers entitled The Aldebaran Mystery, which is also available now as a DVD from UFO Productions. In addition, 13 of Jim's UFO-related video essays are now presented by UFOTV on YouTube, which can be accessed from his website. And Jim has been a guest on my show before, and it's always a pleasure to have him join us. And please welcome Jim to the show this evening. Hi, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Hey, we need to correct that bio. There's 8 videos on UFO TV, not 13.
Okay.
We had a little snafu with YouTube a year ago, so now there's only 8, not 13.
Okay, so
but anyway, they're all brand new productions, and they're very fresh and exciting, and people just love to see them.
Excellent. Well, thank you for correcting that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. All right. So, what else have you been up to?
Well, more stuff, more research, more videos, more video editing, and I just finished a blog and then working on another new blog here, so very, very busy.
Excellent. Well, can you elaborate a little bit on your blogs or documentaries? Anything new you want to touch base with tonight?
No.
Sure you can.
No.
Really?
Okay, my latest blog and latest video is called Aeon of Horus: The Occult History of NASA, and I will give you a hint that these the things I'm working on now are actually an expansion of that line of research, so that should give you some kind of hint on what direction we're going here.
Okay. Well, I know we kind of talked about this off air a little bit the other day. And so if you want to kind of dive in a little bit further for our audience, it's up to you. But I did take a look at your blog, and I was looking at that. And there is that parallel of the ancient mystery schools connected to ancient Egypt. And, of course, it seems to be kind of connected into our NASA program.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But do you see it more of a dark side, or how are you seeing this, and how are you perceiving the information?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm one of those. I'm always a late bloomer. I was doing a show back in 2001 on public access television here in Tucson, and my co-host broached the subject at that time that, well, did you know that the Apollo moon mission was a complete hoax? And so I wouldn't even entertain the idea. It's like, no, it's like that was like sacrilege to me. I'm one of those people who's, a late bloomer. Like everybody else is ahead of the curve because, they've been digging into this conspiracy, this Apollo conspiracy story, way before I did. Mm-hmm. So I was totally resistant to that for a very long time. And it's only within the last 2 years that I thought, okay, I'm going to just give this thing a shot and just really look at the controversy about the Apollo moon landing and so forth. Mm-hmm. And there's a very strong evidence to suggest that the Apollo moon landing that we saw back in the 60s and the early 70s may not have been the true story.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. I think everything has been exaggerated, and once we realize that everything has been kind of a scene being played out, then it's easier to look behind the screen and see what's really going on. I think people have really awakened to that.
Yeah. So anyway, and then just this last year, somebody sent me a link to a YouTube video, very strange video called, and it's entitled "The Lie That NASA Told." Mm-hmm. And it's put out by somebody. They're Their handle it was Yellow Rosa, Texas. So I watched it, and it's I tell you, it is a very, very strange video. And yet it had, whoever did this has done a lot of research on Babylonian occultism and the occult and the link between the occult and NASA and our space administration and so on and so forth. So it's like, on one level, it was easy. I could have dismissed the whole thing. Oh, this is just somebody's off the wall here. But then I looked at it again. I said, no, wait a minute. This person seems to have a very great depth of knowledge about Babylonian occultism and about the occult. And I said, well, maybe they know something that we don't know. And so I decided to kind of dig into the NASA, the occult NASA a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. And what I found, what I dug up, was just utterly astounding.
Okay.
So my Aeon of Horus, the Occult History of NASA, blog and video are the result of that research.
Mm-hmm. And is the video available now?
Yeah, the video is on. The link to that is on YouTube. Okay. I mean, it's on my website.
Okay.
And it's up on UFOTV.
Okay, so people want to watch it, they can certainly access it.
So people can either read the blog or they can watch the video.
Yeah, that's a good.
Well, anyway, one of the in this original video that I was telling you about, the lie that NASA told, there's a guy named Kerry Martinek, who is actually a NASA historian. And in that little video, there's just a little tiny clip where he's saying that he was interviewing a gentleman who was involved with, who worked for NASA. And in the interview, he asked the guy who works for NASA, he says, you people lied about a lot of stuff. And this NASA representative said, no, he says, we didn't lie about a lot of stuff. We lied about everything. So he's saying that everything that NASA has put out to us is essentially a lie.
Right. Well, it's all been censored.
So I'm thinking, well, okay, well, what is really going on with NASA? So I started to kind of dig into that.
Excellent. So what exactly, I mean, obviously there's a front, there's the regular information that's, distributed upon the masses, the illusion, I guess you could call it. Sure. And then there's the real data, the hard data, which of course is connected to the Black Space Program, which nobody really knows about. Now, who is the one that's really in charge of NASA? Really, who's funding NASA, first of all? Who's the one that's paying their bank accounts?
Well, the American taxpayers are paying for it. But we, the American taxpayers, are not told the full story of what our tax dollars are paying for. But then I researched a bit more, and I came across two really excellent videos. One was by Richard Hoagland that he did way back in 1997. All about the secret occult history of NASA. Right. And then there's a follow-up piece that you can find on YouTube with a lecture by Mike Barra, who actually was the co-author of Dark Mission with Richard Hoagland, and the two of them together really tell the inside story of the Apollo moon missions and actually how NASA got put together to begin with.
Right.
And which ultimately involves a man in California named Jack Parsons, or John Whiteside Parsons, whichever you prefer, who was the founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. He was a brilliant scientist, a brilliant rocket engineer who worked for Caltech. And it was Jack Parsons who developed it really put solid fuel rocket technology on the map, and which was eventually used by the Defense Department during World War II, and ultimately was some of the core technology for the development of NASA. So now you see Jet Propulsion Lab and NASA work virtually hand in hand. JPL is deeply involved in Mars exploration projects, and of course Apollo or NASA has been involved with Apollo and space shuttle projects and so on and so forth, ever since then.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the original, where it gets really strange is that Jack Parsons, not only being a brilliant rocket engineer, was also a deep and dark occultist. And he was a devotee of Aleister Crowley. And he was Grand Master of Aleister Crowley's Ordo Templi Orientis Lodge in Pasadena. So it's like you suddenly discover there's this very strange occult, mystical involvement deeply embedded within our, the space agencies. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, what is this all about? So anyway, that was the strangeness that I stumbled upon, and which has taken me down a very, very interesting road ever since.
Right. Well, it is it's an interesting spiral once you start going down that path. And then, of course, there's the left-hand path, which isn't necessarily evil in mysticism. Of course, it's just a different path. And then, of course, there's the more corrupted side to the mysticism in general. So I'm really wondering if it's just about having things cloaked because of how significant they are on an esoteric level, and really it's just about earning the right to be exposed to that information versus them really misusing it. Now I'm trying to assess it in the sense of were they keeping information from the masses because they were trying to protect data, or is it because they're using it to control, manipulate, and weaponize?
I think there's another angle to all of this.
Yeah.
And which ultimately relates to UFO non-disclosure. Mm-hmm. And it relates to just essentially how our country is run at the deepest levels, and how it's run by secret societies. Okay? Because what I've discovered is that at the tippy top of NASA, you have a group of Freemasons, a powerful group of Freemasons. You have also the Nazi connection with Nazi SS occult interests deeply embedded in NASA. And then the capper is you have Aleister Crowley's magicians functioning at the highest levels of NASA. So it's once you understand how the secret societies function, you have to think of NASA at the highest level as like the highest level of Freemasonry, which is to say it's all secret. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it will always be secret. What their goals, their most sophisticated technologies, and all of that will always be secret, because you always keep the secret away from the masses. And this is how you. And it tells me that at the most important levels, space exploration discoveries will be always controlled and managed as absolute secrets.
Mm-hmm. It's really kind of foolish in a sense because, now we have the privatized space programs, We have whoever has the most money can literally have their own space program. So we all have these different sectors right now, or sects of people that are actually out there into the space program, whether it's the black program or not. But, the universe keeps no secrets from the seeker. I mean, the universe, we are celestial beings, whether we acknowledge it or not, and I've mentioned this a million times. But literally our cells, our atoms are all in resonance with universal harmonics, which is star seed consciousness. So when I look at all this stuff, that why would they even bother? Because what they really need to do is educate everybody on a mass scale to the highest level so that everybody is up to speed. And then once everybody's ascended in consciousness, we would have such a better world. But, that's like, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but literally, I don't see that happening, but that's literally what does need to happen.
Well, that's fine, and that's all well and good, but if you're a 33rd degree Freemason, are you going to invite the whole, you're going to invite the mass public to your 33rd degree initiation?
No, of course not. See, that's what I mean. There's this thing where everything is cloaked, and of course, but yet they haven't maxed out either in consciousness, and I know that, even though they think they have, and I'm well aware because of my mystical background. These people who have access really don't have all the answers, and if they did, I think they wouldn't even be on this planet, to be honest. So there's a lot happening.
Well, I think they have a lot more answers than the general public. I think there's a history. I think they fully understand and have access to the absolute true history of planet Earth. They know who we are and how we got here. And this is one of the great secrets that they will never, ever allow the public to know.
Yeah, it's quite the disservice if that's the case, Jim.
Yeah, right.
Without a doubt.
It's pure ego. It's like when you get to be the 33rd degree, it's you're somebody special. And do you want to give up that specialness?
Well, there's a bigger scene behind it all, and I'll tell you what. They haven't begun to pierce that veil. I know that, but I see where you're coming from for sure. And I think it's a disservice on many levels. But yet at the same time, sometimes the truth isn't respected. And you and I have come across this also, where we've communicated data that's hard data, true data, and it doesn't get respected. It gets overlooked and mocked and laughed at, and it doesn't get respected until it really comes to somebody in mainstream who actually starts talking about it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, look, it's real. So if Dr. God says it's real, then all of a sudden it is. So it's a very strange society we live in the illusion of living. And people are programmed, and it's all just one big fabric of strangeness, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've come across these writings. I went back and looked at the writings of Albert Pike. Mm-hmm. Now the huge Scottish Rite temple in Washington D.C. is actually a mausoleum. Mm-hmm. And you know who's buried there?
Okay.
Albert Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Pike, who is a Satanist who is convicted of treason, is revered as a superstar within Freemasonry, and he's treated accordingly. And that huge, magnificent temple in Washington, D.C. is, in fact, his mausoleum. Well, in his book, which he wrote called Morals and Dogma, way back in the 1800s, he really laid it all out. He said, Masonry, like all the religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism, and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled, to conceal the truth, which it calls light, from them, and to draw them away from it. Mm-hmm. Truth is not for those who are unworthy or unable to receive it or would pervert it. The truth must be kept secret, and the masses need a teaching proportioned to their imperfect reason. So I apply that fundamental of secrecy to everything that NASA does, and I also apply that to the UFO field in general.
That's really interesting. Well, that sounds like the early stages of transhumanism, but he was actually telling everybody right there, hidden in plain sight, exactly what they were doing. So, and it's not just the Masons, though. I mean, I think I come from high-ranking Masons on my mother's side, Scottish Rite Masons. Maybe you don't. And he was a good guy, and the people that are associated with my mother's lineage are good. They were good people. So I can't go in and say that there's all this corruption when I know that there are really nice, spiritually advanced beings. I do know that they embrace all people, all belief systems, and with that comes an infusion of corruption, if you ask me, because if people aren't letting go of what their belief systems are or what they're worshiping, and they bring this in and they start polluting the collective of high mystery school teachings, then it's a disaster in motion. So I think that's what happens is that it's been corrupted like a corrupted file, like a corrupted database.
Right. Well, so with this in mind, I picked up a copy of the book by Manly P. Hall, who was also a 33rd degree Freemason, called The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which is an outline of, the whole history of mystery schools and secret societies and so forth. And it was intended to be very, very high esoteric teachings. These are the highest ideals of humanity that these mystery schools were founded on. But like he said, like any mystery school is only as good and is only as good as the people that are in it.
True.
And just because you are, you join Freemasonry, doesn't mean that you're automatically a good person. Mm-hmm. And I'm not putting down Freemasonry. I think it serves a fine purpose because the rank and file, all the degrees, probably up to about 30, are just regular folks. Mm-hmm. And they do fine service for their country. They do fine service for their communities. And that's, that was what was intended.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is that at the very highest levels, the 33rd degree, and within those levels where these people have created a level of exclusiveness where they consider that they are beyond the mass population. These are the ones where you kind of run into the problems. Mm-hmm. That if these people, if their morals are corrupted, then they can certainly use their position for diabolical purposes.
Right. Yeah. It's not enough to have what they have. Well, the thing is also, you're dealing with, I call it an I am God syndrome. And this goes on for anybody who's been on the path of mysticism in general. Once you reach a certain level of consciousness, you become so enlightened and so pure in consciousness that you become godlike in a sense that you think you're God. People do this all the time when they get into the healing arts or any kind of advanced mystery school teaching where they become very advanced in consciousness. Then all of a sudden they're better than everybody else because they're expanded in consciousness. And I've seen this a million times over. So it's not just the Masons. Once again, I think there's a corruption in all religions and all belief systems, and I think there's a certain amount of pollution that's associated with all this. And I think it's about not being able to hold full light consciousness, anchor it, and run the energy for it. It's like the sacred grail. If people drink from the grail and it destroys them, that means, in my opinion, that they're not pure, and they're not the pure energy they think they are. And some people get really corrupted, with power and the illusion of power. We know that. We see it every day. But I think you're right. But what I think is what's happening also is that there's definitely an access where people are getting taken over by entity possession. And that could be through mysticism, but it's also through even regular religions. I see it. People are being possessed. They're getting taken over by and embodied by something that is not pure. And you can see it by the way they act from day to day. And that's what I've been noticing on a global scale.
Exactly. Well, this is one of the things that Manly Hall really points out in his book. There's a chapter about ceremonial magic, and this is one of the key chapters in this book. And I urge everybody should read this. He says, while the elaborate ceremonial magic of antiquity was not necessarily evil, there arose from it perversion. From its perversion, several false schools of sorcery, or black magic. So, essentially, white magic is perverted into black magic and sorcery, and that's what you've seen a proliferation of throughout human history. And he says it was actually the black magicians of Atlantis. Their black magic was resurrected later on in Egypt and Babylon and so forth. And that's the legacy that we're seeing, like at the highest levels within NASA, within the Nazi SS, and in Aleister Crowley's black magic.
Right. And
this is white magic that has been perverted by ego and self-aggrandizement into black magic.
Right.
And that's the pitfall.
Well, I can see that. And also, really what you're dealing with is energy. It's whether it's a neutral energy or not. I don't consider it white or black. I consider it energy. And what you're doing, or what they're doing, rather, is literally using it for negative purposes and opposed to doing something positive. So, yeah, you can call them black magicians, no doubt. And I also see a weaponization of the astral plane and a weaponization of the paranormal, which means that they're using technological warfare to enhance this design work that they've created as magicians. Now, I think you're right also about Atlantis, and we had this discussion off air about Atlantis, but I don't believe a lot of these people are Atlantean incarnates, which means that they're disembodied and they're just working with rogue data that they've acquired, whether it's reverse engineered from the Nazis or whether they've found little pieces in books and they're all working with it. I think there are pieces of the puzzle that they are missing, and I think that that's big, because once you don't have all the pieces, it can get really chaotic.
Well, that's the strangeness where you have people like Aleister Crowley, or even you could go back as far as the Elizabethan era of John Dee, where these are two magicians who believed that they could contact extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial consciousness or entities like Enochian entities that were full of wisdom and were going to, if you could access these beings, they would impart fantastic wisdom and knowledge and so forth to the humans of Earth. Mm-hmm. When in fact, all they've done, they've sold themselves out to a bunch of demons.
Well, the bottom line is, too, depending on what degree mankind has evolved, is what he's going to receive. And you know this. It's a mirror image. So basically, if they acquire something that's more advanced than they are, then that energetic will show them who they are opposed to what they can be. That's how the universe works. So in other words, consciousness acts like a mirror to mankind, and that includes other species that are out there, interdimensional beings. We all know we've had many kinds of races here before mankind showed up on the map, on this planet they call Earth. So, but yeah, I see where you're coming from on that, and I do think that people get possessed by entities and disembodied spirits, and they have overlays of false memories which are not theirs from other lifetimes, which are not necessarily connected to theirs, but more of a hive collective. So, I mean, that's real esoteric, but that's really what I'm looking at.
Well, what it comes down to, what Manly Hall boils it down to, and this is so simple, it's like the most dangerous form of black magic is the scientific perversion of occult power for the gratification of personal desire.
Well, you know, when you look at Crowley, as advanced as everybody thinks he was and how powerful, he died broke. I mean, he didn't die with anything. So for somebody who was supposedly this powerful magician, and I come from the craft, I come from a mystical background, I don't think, I'm not impressed with him, because what did he acquire, really?
Right.
I mean, honestly, okay, so he did some powerful rituals that were basically impressive to other people, but at the same time, when you look at it, he died in a miserable state.
Yeah, he died he died broke and was a heroin addict.
Right. So how does the universe serve him as a powerful magician? Obviously it didn't.
Well, you know, he sold his soul to the devil, and so when he dies, then he becomes the devil's servant.
Well, he's certainly a slave now, because you know, because obviously he took a step down somewhere along that path.
Sure.
But
what's scary is what's really frightening now, and he predicted the Aeon of Horus was what the age of Horus is what we're living in now, and you see this proliferation of black magic, especially in Hollywood and so forth. And you know, music rock stars and who are openly enamored of Aleister Crowley. In Hollywood, Aleister Crowley's like a rock star. So he's like, people don't see, you know, they have been totally gullible to not looking at the dark side of all this energy, and so much of it is like just like Manly Hall said, it's for the aggrandizement of ego. Right. It's a crossroads. It's all perverted by ego.
I agree. Yeah, there's the lower self and then there's a higher self. I mean, there's two paths, and we all we can all choose which path we want. But I think that path is the one that everyone wants to be on, because it's the one with the illusion of fame and wealth and fortune, and they think it's all beautiful and perfect when in fact it's actually very destructive.
Exactly.
So,
well,
you know.
So this gets back to secret societies and the intelligence community and so forth, which actually functions in and of itself like a secret society.
Right.
And if you look at, John Kennedy was the one president who actually spoke out publicly against secret societies. And then you look at the Warren Commission, it was packed to the rafters with Freemasons. So,
well, it seems to me like oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
You say, people say, well, there's nothing conspiratorial about Freemasonry and so forth. I said, well, then why was the Warren Commission packed with Freemasons? Why was MJ-12 packed with Freemasons? It's like these. It seems like they are absolutely guarding great secrets. So these secrets will be held only by the high initiates within these secret societies.
Well, I think you're right to some degree on that, but I also believe that they don't have all the data. I just don't believe they do. And I just know that because they have a structure of their own. And it's like a vortex. I mean, you can have whatever belief system, but the bottom line is if there's one drop of corruption in that system, it doesn't work. and as we discussed earlier. So good and bad infused together. There's always going to be a polluted strain in that masonry to a point where it's not going to achieve what it needs to achieve because it's been contaminated. Once again, you have to keep it a clean line of consciousness, and it's become a boys club, girls club now, mainly a boys club because we have the Eastern Stars who are the females. But yeah, I agree with you. But there's also a new breed taking over. And it's not the Masons that's taking over right now. We've got a new breed now, and the new breed is not connected to the Masonry. So that's something you need to look at as well. That's an entirely different animal. It's actually a lot more aggressive. It's a perpetrator and it's a predator. And it's, to me, it seems a lot more dangerous than the Masons, big time.
Okay. Well, the research the project I'm working on presently takes this. I want to look at where this secret society, where these networks actually came from. What inspired them? What is their goal? Where did they actually come from? And we trace it all the way back to the interface with the so-called Anunnaki in Samaria, some 6,000 years ago, and that apparently. If you really look at the whole structure of it, it would seem that at the highest levels of these secret societies, a portion of their membership has been specifically groomed to interface with a very hostile, malevolent extraterrestrial intelligence. Which is running the show from behind the scenes. And that is the imperative for why we need secret societies to run a cover or run a shadow operation for these extraterrestrial entities that are pulling the strings behind the scenes.
I think we've talked before that there are frequency wars happening here, consciousness wars, frequency wars, and many races and many species masked in human form, and the illusion of human, which doesn't really exist. That's a program. But literally, there are people wandering the world right now, and whether they're good or evil, depending on whatever star system they come from originally, I think that's there. There's no doubt about it, and I don't discount secret societies connecting in with these off-world intelligence programs because that's part of our black space program, obviously. But there's also the hybridization. You can't eliminate that because they've been working on genetically manipulating and engineering a different species, which appears as extraterrestrial, which is actually not extraterrestrial in the black underground, of course. And that's being deployed for a long time now. So we've got that going on. Now we've got the MEST, Project Bluebeam, wannabe ETs. And I'm telling you, between you and I and the world that's listening, I know they're going to deploy those ETs and make them and try to pull them off as real ETs, and they're not. They're engineered. So people need to get a heads up on that one.
Well, the big joke here is that planet Earth was invaded by ETs thousands of years ago that never left. That never left. That this has been the whole human race going back to Samaria is nothing but ET hybrids.
Well, when then you look at it too, if we want to get really, really down into it, the Earth isn't even the Earth. And remember, we talked about this off the air too a little bit. You were kind of talking about Tiamat and some other things, but literally, okay, so what are we dealing with? Is this even a planet, or was it terraformed, or you know what I mean? We can go to so many different levels of what started this world, and then we have the moon factor. Okay, where did it come from, and what point did it decide to come in and be the supervisor of mankind? Because we all know it's been an engineered mechanism. Whatever you want to call it, artificial design. So, we can go really far out in this. But the bottom line is, when you think about it, Jim, it's the truth. These are engineered things that people never realize because we've been so busy living in this false reality growing up that, you look up and you see the moon at night, or you think how beautiful it is, but you don't realize what it is. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
Well, consequently, if you have all these powerful secret societies at the highest levels of NASA and intelligence agencies and so forth, it's like, how will the American public ever hope to gain access to the real truth of what's going on here, unless the powers that be are somehow removed?
Well, we talked about that too, but what would happen if we got rid of all of these cabals and all this control and all the manipulation? What do you think is going to happen to mankind? Because mankind seems to need that. He needs, and I don't know why, but he kind of needs a handler, if you ask me, and that's unfortunate.
That seems to be well, we have been conditioned
Mm-hmm.
to need a patriarch or an administrator
Mm-hmm.
that tells us what to think and what to do, and and when to jump and when to sit, and and like we look at the calendar and okay, it's almost December 25th, so that means we have to go out and buy Christmas presents or Hanukkah presents, and it's like we're Pavlov's dogs.
Mm-hmm. It's programming.
Ring the bell and the dog salivates, and it's we just run on automatic.
Right.
And if humans actually stop and think, what's really going on here? Who's really in charge? How can I fix the planet? How can I make the economy better? What can I do to make life on planet Earth much more humane for both the humans and the planet itself? It's like, God, that's going to take, somebody's going to have to sit down and think about how to make that happen. And I don't see very many people on the horizon who really have viable plans for that. So it's like everybody, this is the way it's always been. This is, it'll always be like this, and we just run on automatic.
Right, it's a comfort zone. Well, enlightenment brings multidimensional consciousness. That's the bottom line. It's about personal path to enlightenment, a personal path to enlightenment, if you ask me. And that literally changes the dynamic of the world we live on. So it's really about people doing their own personal work on themselves, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and also being up to speed insofar as what's going on the bigger scale of things, not with paranoia, but with knowledge and wisdom and enlightenment.
Exactly.
But you see these people who are into transhumanism, and they're brilliant people. A lot of them are really genius minds. But I'll tell you what they're missing, Jim. They're missing multidimensional consciousness. They're missing a link to source, a merge to source. And with that, there's like a vacuum in these people. They don't have any enlightenment factors, and they don't understand how consciousness works in a matrix of machinery. So, and that's one thing that I learned when I was interfaced with a lot of that other artificial intelligence stuff. So.
Okay, well, that's where I think you see these are kind of very telltale symptoms of the fact that just because somebody looks human doesn't mean that they are human.
Mm-hmm, true. And the human is a word that is used to describe nothing. Right. Because when you look at it, we've been lied to since day one. We don't even know our celestial birthright. And that's huge, because we're not from this planet. And no one will ever convince me we are, okay, as a species. I'm sorry. I'm not going to buy their game. I'm just not going to buy it. I know too much to suck myself into that false matrix. And I will tell you, once people start understanding that they're multidimensional beings, that they are empowered beings, that they have avatar abilities that are way beyond what people can even imagine. I mean, that's freedom, that's free will, and that's something that's not honored here by these cabals and these groups of people that want to keep everybody controlled. And as you and I talked before earlier too, it's they want to keep the frequency fence, and you discussed a little bit about that off air with me. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on that at all, but it's quite interesting.
Well, it's there's a dichotomy here, and I think it kind of relates to the movie The Matrix, where there's people walking around that look human, but actually they are guardians of the Matrix. They are guardians to make sure to protect the Matrix itself from enlightenment. There are enlightened people out there, and it's like the Matrix itself reacts to that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, you're a threat to the Matrix, and so you'll see these people who somehow come into your orbit, who want to jam your frequencies, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's also technological jamming too.
And there's absolutely. So unfortunately, the Matrix is designed to kind of protect itself, which brings up another whole line of thought that suggests that what we live in is actually a virtual reality.
Holographic field, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that too. Well, it's a holographic universe when you think about it, and also an electric universe. I mean, it's all about manifestation at will. We all understand this language. I mean, it's an old language, but we understand it very well. And these guys have mastered that language of control, right down to putting suggestions in people's minds to a point where it limits their consciousness.
Sure.
So, I mean, it really takes a strong mind to break orbit with that, let me tell you, because a lot of people are in a comfort zone. They don't do that.
So you have to kind of stand back, and this is what I'm trying to do, stand back and look at the big picture. Why do they need to do this? Why are they...
Yeah, what are they afraid of, right?
Yeah, what are they afraid of?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Definitely, what are they afraid of? And I was just I've been kind of re-examining the research of Michael Tessarian, and he has this incredible theory about the whole history of Atlantis and the whole history of the human race, in that that an extraterrestrial group, for lack of a better name, we'll call them the Anunnaki, but they were a hostile, very hostile reptilian group, spacefaring group, that were involved in a great galactic war some 50,000 years ago, and they were marooned here. They've been trapped here. And the story he tells is that they have been using humans. They turned humans into their own personal slave race, and that much of the technology that they originally had during the Galactic War was lost in a huge battle and the ensuing destruction on planet Earth. So the whole history, his claim is that the whole history of the human race has been for these secret masters, the hidden masters, to recreate their lost weapons technology, their high occult super technology. So once again, they can launch themselves back out into space and escape their imprisonment here on planet Earth.
So literally, they want to go home?
Well, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to see him go.
Well, the thing is, but you have to be clear insofar as now. I like that person too, but I really need to know where this data stream comes from, because, I agree with you insofar as there's all different kinds of species here, but I want to know more about their origin, what happened to them, why were they trapped, and what species are we talking about, what star system are we talking about? I mean, there's so many questions, and when I think about things that are trapped. I used to call demons pissed off angels, because, if you trap something, if you try to harness energy and you try to weaponize energy, or you take a spirit and you try to put it in a space of control manipulation, it's going to get pissed off. Right. And I look at energy like that and consciousness like that, and I'm asking, and I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate, but I'm asking, why are these beings angry? What caused them to act that way? And what's happening? I mean, how did they become so trapped? And I mean, those are questions I guess maybe he has answers to. But I'd like to know the source of where this data is coming from.
Well, that's a good question for Michael Tessarian.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because I mean,
let me reference you to Simon Parkes. This is a gentleman who, the British city councilman, who has just recently come forward claiming to be an Illuminati insider, as well as alien contactee. The way he defines it is that he defines the reptilians as a very closed, evolutionarily closed species. That they're very hostile, they're very arrogant, they're technically and intellectually brilliant, beyond human comprehension. However, they see themselves as the highest form of expression in the universe, and they are definitely their total orientation is service to self, and that planets, other species, other civilizations are theirs to plunder, because they are they are substandard to the fundamental perception of these reptilian overlords. Well, if somebody out there, according, if Michael Tessarian's, scenario is correct, that somebody out there with bigger and better guns and weapons managed to get them cornered here on planet Earth, or at least a contingent of them cornered here. And Simon Parkes also said that their arch enemies are the Pleiadians. He didn't specifically say that the Pleiadians chased them here and quarantined them here, but if you read between the lines, it would very likely be the Pleiadians or a Pleiadian Pleiadians allied with other like-minded extraterrestrials that would be involved in this kind of a space war. Right. And that the Pleiadians would, essentially would not have any compunctions about trapping them here, chasing them here, and trapping them here.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about Simon Parks now? Has he had interaction with extraterrestrials, reptilians?
Yes.
And what was his position? I forget. I didn't see his video.
His position?
What was his was his employment? Let's put it that way.
He's a city councilman in England.
Okay. All right. So he says he's had interaction with reptilians?
Yes. Yes. Both his parents have worked for British intelligence.
Okay. Well, there you go.
And they were very, very high placed within British intelligence.
Okay, let me riddle this to you. Let me just throw this at you because of where I come from. Is there any possibility that this guy was subjected to psychotronic warfare, which would create a screen memory of an extraterrestrial race, like a reptilian, that would appear hostile, when in fact it was just an engineered program and not really an extraterrestrial at all?
I can't address that.
I want you to understand something, and I know you know that there is a program that does that. So that a lot of these people that say they're contactees and abductees, some are legitimate, and some are just completely gone into the program, which is artificial intelligence programming. And the fact of the matter is, if these people are British intelligence, that kind of gives me a red flag. And I'm not playing the devil's advocate at all, not at all. I'm well aware there are species out there that, good and evil and whatever, but mankind can be real jerk too. So, and he's proven that. So, anyways, but I didn't mean to change the subject on you, but I just had to ask, and I'll research more on this guy for sure.
He is not. He has not made any claim to being employed by military or British intelligence.
No, but his parents were, you said,
His
right?
parents were.
Yeah.
He claims, he says that he was offered a position in the Illuminati, which he declined.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what's interesting? What I find is that people who come from families of that, whether it's CIA or whatever family, there's always mind control oriented. The children always get mind control subliminally, and it's not even in their face. It's very, very quiet and discreet, but there is control and manipulation factor associated. And that's just the research that I've done. So that's what I've got these guys pegged when it comes to these covert intelligence agencies, boy. I mean, I can profile them from A to Z. Unfortunately, but it's nothing against you, Jim.
Okay,
I respect everything
appreciate
you're saying.
that, but I'm not prepared to throw the baby out with the bathwater because
no, I don't
feel
blame
like
you. Go ahead.
He's I understand that, but he's also an insider, and he sees things from a different point of view.
Right.
And I'm just factoring in his, and I'm not saying I can't.
No, I don't want you to throw anything away. I want you to keep this all in your filing cabinet for sure.
Yeah, right. Information is information.
Absolutely.
And when I listen to his commentary, he connects dots that other researchers haven't been able to connect. Simply because we're on the outside looking in, while he's on the inside looking out. So with that in mind, he's offered information that does seem to connect dots. And in a very general sense, he seems to understand this same problem with this hostile alien group that is trapped here. And his point of view is that they feel like they have their last window for escape is in 2016.
And we talked about that off air too.
Yes.
It's supposed to be an asteroid or something, I believe. I want to say 2016 or 2018, but there's a lot changing right there on that timeline.
Well, he speaks of it as though there's like a major energy shift that will be happening that will. It's not about a asteroid or anything. There's an energy shift within the time frame that will preclude any options for them escaping the planet ever again.
That's interesting.
So if you go back and look at the history that Michael Tessarian lays out, it's like you see this progression. This insane progression of human obsession with technology that seems to be accelerating, constantly accelerating. It's as if something has been driving the human race ever since recorded history to develop this technology. And it's like, and there's wars, and every time there's a major war, the technology expands exponentially. And since World War II, it's like technologies that took centuries to develop now take decades. And computer technology that used to take decades now takes months.
Well, and plus that's not incorporating the black space program and the black technology.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean they're very advanced, Jim.
So I say, what?
I agree with you.
It seems to me that there's someone. It's like there's a slave driver with a whip behind the scenes that is driving this, and it's like we have to get this done because we're desperate to accomplish something, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Right. And it seems very much like, okay, well, maybe they are trapped here, and maybe this is their desperate last-ditch attempt to escape.
Well, I would say that if they're not capable of ascending in consciousness, then yes, they are trapped. And whether
they're not the least bit, and they're simply not interested.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they will never make it then, unless they hijack somebody's body, and even then they won't make it.
Right. And their idea of escaping is to just come out shooting.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's kind of like the Titanic. It's kind of like, if they're going to be sinking, they want everybody to sink with them. And that's a real bad perspective they have. But that is what I'm seeing as well, that there are those of us, I mean, free will is really huge in the universe. And if you honor free will, well, right. I mean, with multidimensional mastery comes so much. And that's infinite consciousness and understanding of everything from the beginning of man-made time and beyond. I mean, we can understand everything in a microsecond. And then that's threatening to these people, whoever they are.
Absolutely.
Whatever they are. They don't want that knowledge. And you started off talking about the Masons and the control and the manipulation and the censorship. And that's not just the Masons, but they are a faction, or a factor in this equation too. So I'm looking at all these people, like, where do they get off playing God with a little g, first of all? And where do they get off trying to control, manipulate the masses to a point where everybody gets shut down and switched off on a DNA level? Now you've got...
Because, I'll tell you why, because what you're seeing through this, the mentality of their reptilian handlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're being taken over.
That's what you see. It's not the humans that, they're small potatoes. What you're seeing is the expression of this reptilian mentality behind all of this.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something. Well, I see it as an entity control without a doubt. And I also know that there is artificial intelligence connected in with it. I'm well aware that whatever's going on with these people and British, they're just completely saturated in AI over there in the UK, okay? We all know that, and here in the US as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's other countries as bad, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people here who have been programmed with that AI, big time.
If you track this back through history, talking about the Brits, it was Queen Elizabeth I. What they called her the Virgin Queen, because she was a reptilian. She was directly linked to the reptilian bloodline. And if you look at the incredible rise of power in Britain during the Elizabethan period, that's when Britain became ruled the world. The sun never set on the British Empire, and it was Queen Elizabeth, and through her black magician, Sir John Dee, that was accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's a lot of corruption.
And John Dee was the father of British intelligence, and you know what his code number was? 007.
Ah, shucks. I like that.
I love it. I just love it.
But I like to think there are good people in all these areas. There has to be.
There are.
I mean, I cannot believe that they're all evil pieces of garbage. There has to be good people. There just has to be. I mean, that's just the way I see it. But I know what you're talking about. I'm not even going to get into my mother's lineage because it goes way back too. So I mean, I could be a reptile too.
I've got Freemasons in the closet myself.
I was going to say, you're kind of talking to somebody who's kind of entwined with a lot of that esoteric stuff. But like I said, it's energy, and how you use it and what you do from day to day with the energy in your world is really what's significant. What are we doing to make it a better world each day we're here? I think is the biggest thing. And taking away this evil, the fear, the paranoia, the control, the manipulation, taking away all of this craziness that's happening. But I think it's spiking up due to the misuse of technology.
Well, that's why I do what I do. I think just exposing this stuff publicly, letting the public, exposing the public to this information, hopefully in a non-threatening way. And it's like, well, it's like you demystify it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's good that
you take the magic away from it. So, oh, well, these are people doing, maybe not such nice things, and maybe we need to take a look at. Maybe we need to understand what it is they do and why they do it.
Right. I think that's the huge thing. I think it's are they so driven to do this, to harm others? And there's this psychotic personality associated with it, sociopaths, where they get off on it. There's something that really it gives them pleasure to do these things to other people in a negative fashion, which I don't get at all.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really good that you're questioning that. Now, is it a defective DNA pattern? Because it sounds like one to me.
Well, there's a twofold thing. There's something called, have you heard of ponerology?
No. Mm-mm.
Ponerology. It is a psychological study of the inability of the general public to recognize the sociopathic behavior of their own leaders. So it's twofold. You have sociopathic leaders, but then you have a population that can't even recognize the fact that their leaders are sociopaths.
Right. It's a bad relationship.
That's
what reminds me of a bad marriage.
So this is a line of study into psychological aberrant study, in and of itself.
Right. There's so many levels to it. I'll tell you what. But I think exposing it in a kind fashion, is really a good way to get people awakened to the fact that we need to make some big changes here on this planet. I don't want to see this planet going down in a negative spiral. I just don't. And we could make it stop. Because there's so many divisions. There's an infinite amount of people in connection to whatever you want to call it. That's being the puppet masters. They're the puppet masters behind the scenes. And they are pulling the strings and calling the shots. And there are people being used and misused and abused, and it goes on and on and on. I don't have to tell you that, but it all needs to just stop. But I think what's driving them is really important, because if you realize what's driving them, what energetic, is it an energetic? Is it entity possession? Is it a takeover in their own hive collective that's pushing them, like you were talking about earlier? That's a high possibility.
Well, look at it this way. I keep wanting to step back and always look at the bigger picture. It's like these entities have backed themselves into an evolutionary cul-de-sac. They're stuck.
Yep.
And it's like maybe the universe is telling us, look, guys, you either evolve or you're out.
Yep, I agree with that.
Evolve or you're out of the game. And it's like they're backed themselves into the corner where they have no more options.
It's so easy to surrender to the streams of creation, Jim. It is such an easy thing to let go of the wheel and just surrender. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm talking about just let it go and just let the universe take the helm. Sure. It is such an easy path. I don't understand why they don't do that.
Well, some can, some can't. And this is what I really appreciate about Simon Parkes. And he makes this, he really makes this distinction. He says that there are other races out there that want to evolve. They want to evolve, and they know the human race has incredible potential to evolve. And it's like this one group is blocking the whole freight train here. And it's like there's other groups that want to evolve, and it's like the reptilians are blocking it for everybody. So he says we're really coming down to this amazing nexus point where something's got to give.
Well, I agree with that. Well, the Earth is already doing her thing. There's pole shift going on, and there's all sorts of other stuff happening behind the scenes. But there's a big universe out there, and I'll tell you what, Jim, that universe doesn't sit there and take a second seat to some group collective that thinks they want to play God. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that one. But I do think empowerment is about educating the masses, and once they become empowered, then they can take the helm, and they can see through the screen, and they can pull that curtain and see the old man behind it, and they can call the shots, and that's huge. So that's why I do what I do, because I believe knowledge protects, ignorance endangers. Absolutely, yeah. Ignorance is not bliss. It can get you killed these days. You got to be smart, in my opinion. And with that being said, we're going to head for a break real quick. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back on Dark Matter Radio Network. Welcome back, everybody, to Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I'm here at Hyperspace with Jim Nichols. And Jim, you with me?
I'm still here.
All right. Yay. And thank you for joining us tonight. This has been an exceptional conversation, and I'm really excited to have you on. So thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. And this is a good conversation. I mean, it's something that needs to be had. I don't talk about this type of stuff very often. I mean, we can talk about different things, but this is important. I think it's important that people kind of take a different perspective insofar as what's going on here and even the possibilities. And I'm wondering, we're talking about all these different species. Maybe they're just going extinct. Has it occurred to someone that they might be going extinct and maybe ascension isn't an option?
I just wonder if maybe at some level the reptilians know that.
I think so. I really get that.
And I don't know, can a species have that option? It's like, screw it. I don't want to evolve. I don't care. I will not evolve. And it's like, and I will assume the responsibility for that. Whatever the consequences, I'll be damned if I'm going to evolve. Can a species do that?
I think it's foolish, but it seems to me like they're going extinct due to the fact that they don't choose to step up and go beyond in consciousness. And I really believe it's a collective that's not expanded in consciousness. I don't care what race or species that we're dealing with here. It's really about that, because if they were advanced in consciousness, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing here on this planet. That's for sure.
Well, that's so interesting, and some of the discussions with Simon Parks, it's like I get the sense that there are other species out there that have pointed this out to the reptilians, and it's like, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do.
It's like a kid having a tantrum, really, when it boils down to it.
Yeah, they are absolutely. They're very very juvenile in that sense. But
it's quite interesting, nonetheless.
It's Solaris. It's just apparently just one of the peculiarities of the universe we live in.
Well, it's interesting because, whenever I tune into the spectrum in the full light universe, I don't get the negativity. I don't get anything with hostile races and species. I mean, the only bad thing that's ever happened to me on this planet has been the covert program that I was subjected to. I mean, I have not had the negative interaction with off-world species. So I can't relate to that. However, I'm not discounting it, but I do know, of course, as I've mentioned, that there is the psychotronic stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you haven't gone out looking for it.
No, but I am a little star being. I mean, I'm a prime target to have alien craft on my butt. Let's put it that way.
But you're not Aleister Crowley. You haven't deliberately invoked it.
Well, no, I don't play that card. I'm a higher consciousness being. That's why.
Well, these people have done that.
Yeah.
These people do that.
They work with things they can't control, and then the thing is, they also try to harness and summon things they can't control. And I don't care who they are. I mean, I'm well aware of that. So, you can't make deals with disembodied units and spirits and think they're going to, you just can't do that. Anybody who knows universal law knows that it's a universal highway, and there's protocol and there's etiquette in other dimensions. I don't care what race or species you're dealing with. And I don't believe that mankind has learned the etiquette yet. I think a lot of us have as star people, but you have to really understand that highway.
Well,
that's for sure.
That's what is incomprehensible to me, that an Aleister Crowley or a Jack Parsons would deliberately, willfully invoke these kind of entities to interact with.
Well, he got off on it. I mean, he pushed the envelope. I mean, the whole thing about Crowley is that he was always pushing the envelope. He wanted the shock value, and he got it. Right. And he did a lot of things that were outside the box, and some of it was outrageous. But I've like, coming from the background I come from with mysticism and magic, I was never impressed by a lot of what he did. However, I also know that a lot of his ritual work was weaponized, and that's stuff that's not in any book that you're going to be able to access. That's the thing.
I don't doubt.
Yeah, it was all weaponized. I know that. So literally, people who go out and into the craft and they want to, do a Crowley ritual, they're just going to come up with regular stuff. They're not going to get what the real stuff that he was actually doing. And also, there's tricksters in there. There's if you do ritual work from other people who have written any type of book of shadows, you're going to wind up doing the ritual of the person who created it. And sometimes you're going to summon things you don't want because that person had a different intent. And I believe that there are tricks that people have to be very, very cautious when they're borrowing grimoires of other occultists and using them. Mm-hmm. You have to be very, very careful with that.
Explain to your audience what a grimoire is.
It's a book of magic. It's a book of shadows. It's literally a book of rituals, and a book that usually is only shared with a coven or those who are initiated into the craft. It's something you don't pass around to other people. But you'll see
Right,
books,
right.
out today, which, a lot of people get their hands on old ritual books and on the craft and this and that. And, some of them are okay. They're harmless. And then a lot of them are not. I mean, you have to use discernment. It's bottom line.
It's like a little kid playing with a nest of rattlesnakes.
Right. Well, you can sit there and play your Ouija board and summon Aleister Crowley, but I guarantee you'll get an entity that's pretending to be Aleister Crowley.
Yes, absolutely.
They're entities. They're liars.
Yeah.
They won't tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they'll tell you anything you want to hear.
Yep, you bet they will. And then there's another side to this, Jim. That's the mock radio communication system that actually creates a radio frequency signature that can actually pretend to be a spirit and actually mimics the whole thing. So that's another beast that they've harnessed, and that's the weaponization of paranormal. That's another scenario. That's a whole other show.
Absolutely.
But boy, oh boy, can I,
Well, anyway, so.
All right, went off on that spin there.
This is up until just this year when I started to research NASA's occult history and the connection of Jack Parson and Aleister Crowley. This is the Pandora's box that it opened. And
that's quite a Pandora's box, isn't it?
It is an extraordinary. It's
well,
because I always dismissed Aleister Crowley as just a crackpot. So he's just some wacko crackpot, and who was out doing this stuff for his own ego. But then to learn that he was involved with British intelligence, and he's also involved with NASA, and NASA takes his stuff very seriously.
And Hitler too, right?
This and Jack Parsons along with him. So this puts this whole thing into a totally different bag.
Right. Well, they obviously had something. He had something they wanted, without a doubt.
Well, the other thing is you look at Aleister Crowley claimed to have contacted entities that look like the little Greys. It's like, and so it's like, with the specific intent of opening a portal so these entities could have access to our reality.
Well, and another thing is, I think that since we are multidimensional beings anyway, we automatically are capable of opening those gateways ourselves and those stargates. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I think that's very interesting, though. We were talking about this.
But would you want to? So,
if some people want to establish communication with an extraterrestrial, they might do that. They might open that door, without a doubt. Look at the Vril Society.
Exactly. Okay. Well, the Vril Society, they did their little shtick the year right after Aleister Crowley contacted his extraterrestrials that like AWAS and Lamb, who told him that there were artifacts on Mars. You need to find the artifacts on Mars. So
it's really fascinating, and it's weird, and it's crazy. I know.
Yeah.
But I'm so interested in it. You know what I mean? Because I want to know more. I mean, yeah, we were touching the surface of a lot of this stuff, but I think it's very fascinating, quite honestly.
Right. It's one thing for Aleister Crowley to go into a seance or whatever and claim to be talking to extraterrestrials. But it's another thing altogether when Jet Propulsion Laboratory or NASA starts organizing or launching space, explorations based on Aleister Crowley or Jack Parsons' occult workings.
Right. Yeah, and it's almost like
a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, and it's almost like they were using a lot of mind control influence on that as well. But it was like they were using Crowley or even some of the ritual format as a liaison between them and the ETs, which is really strange. But like I said, I believe they weaponized the craft, to be honest with you. And they weaponized the paranormal, and with that, they've weaponized everything now. I mean, I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm not kidding you. Actually, it's like crazy insanity. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. But yeah, so where do you go from there?
Where do we go from there?
I mean, after all these people have pretty much departed the Earth, so what's left?
I mean the reptilian Anunnaki.
Well, just even like Crowley, all these people are gone now. I mean, they're gone, and their legacy is pretty much diminished. Wouldn't you say?
No,
you don't think so?
No, I don't. What I think is that they open a portal, and if you look at the fabric of our contemporary culture, especially the entertainment business and so forth, it's as though that energy is now intrinsic in much of our own society.
Well,
And that's what Curly's entity told him, that you are opening the age of Horus. You are opening a portal for this energy to flood all through the planet.
mm-hmm.
And if you look at the social history of the United States, especially since World War II, you can't even watch a Super Bowl now without having a satanic ritual at the halftime.
Yeah, but they don't even know what they're doing. The sad part of that Illuminati wannabes, and I call them wannabes because I'm telling you, Jim, some of the stuff they do, they don't even know. They're like slaves to an illusion. They have no idea what those symbols mean. And just like a lot of these ancient symbols weren't necessarily evil, but they were borrowed by all these different areas and different religious groups that use them and misuse them. So,
yes, but they're now they're displaying their sigils and their black magic to the mass population, and you don't know subliminally what that's doing to them. Whether
I understand where you're coming from.
Whether Madonna or Katy Perry know what they're doing is irrelevant. The point is that they're displaying all these sigils and all this black magic symbology, to the entire mass population.
Right. Well, unfortunately, the mass populace is being slept. And they're being slept by many different things. And so when they're being subjected to quote unquote television, that's more programming. So yeah, they could probably be hit with some subliminal suggestions. Mm-hmm. But as I mentioned earlier, their whole, from what I've seen, they're working towards the transhumanism thing. So everybody, I believe, they want everybody to be interfaced with machines to a point where they don't have free will and they don't have a choice to think for themselves. So that's what they're heading towards, in my opinion.
Okay, well that was ultimately, if you go back and look at the Sumerian issues with the Anunnaki and their original hybrid slave race, that was the problem, that they were interfacing Anunnaki DNA, reptilian DNA, with human DNA. And eventually the human DNA would become more dominant, and that they would want to resist. They wouldn't want to be mindless slaves anymore. And so they would resist. And so this has always been the problem, is like the human DNA within the human species always wants freedom. It's always after freedom. So when you're looking at the transhumanism issue, it's like, well, are they going to finally create a slave race, a cyborg race that has absolutely no human free will embedded in it any way, shape, or form at all? So that would be the ultimate optimum slave race for the Anunnaki.
Well, I will tell you one thing, Jim, just from my own experience with the AI, I can tell you that the whole design work behind it is to trap the spirit. Because once you're interfaced with the artificial intelligence, when you transfer out, they can take a lot of template, and they certainly can take a lot of the life force associated with it into their artificial intelligence design. So I think it is about entrapment on a spiritual level, without a doubt. Because once we're empowered, as I've mentioned earlier, we have unlimited free will and avatar abilities and multidimensional mastery, which, of course, there's no need for control manipulation. There is no need for rules and regulations. Everything we're subjected to from every single day, all these rules, all these illusions, we don't need those as empowered beings, and they know this. So I think it's about graduating to the highest level of ascension versus them keeping everybody down with a gravity well, which they've done quite well over the centuries. Without a doubt.
Well, okay. Once again, it's like, well, if we're going to be trapped here forever, we got to have our slaves that constantly do our bidding, no matter what. So that's where your cyborgs would fit into their agenda. But ultimately, it comes down to if they can't evolve, will they just implode?
I don't think they can evolve, because if they don't have spirit, if they're void of spirit and they're void of consciousness, then there's no place for them to go. They become a vacuum. That's my own impression of that. Right. So, I mean, there's something to be said about the soul, whatever you want to call it, spirit, consciousness. This whole planet is a life force. Everybody knows it. It's a life form. It's evolving. It's ascending. And that's another thing too. This planet's ascending, whether people like it or not. Yeah, it's going through a lot right now, but it's still moving on in consciousness and its own design work.
Okay.
So with that, it's ascending. So where are they going to go? They're going to have to ascend or go extinct, right?
Right. Well, you really just paraphrased Simon Parks. He said, the energies are changing, and no matter what.
Right.
And you either go with it or you go extinct.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, Well, I don't want to say it's the Borg, though. It's not about being assimilated. But I mean, anybody who knows ascension work understands that we are redesigning ourselves and our DNA is ascending to a higher level of consciousness. But I know they're running interference, and I know there are frequency fences associated. And once again, the moon factor comes in because that's not just a little moon that's hanging out up there. And I'm still wondering at what point is that moon going to do its thing? I'm not saying it's the Death Star, but I'm just saying there's things that are going on that people have ignored for a very long time about our wonderful moon. So.
Yeah. So why do all my bones ache when it's a full moon? What has changed? The moon's still there.
Everything's amplified.
It isn't any closer. All it's doing is reflecting more sunlight to the Earth. Is that what causes all the aches and pains?
I don't know. Maybe it's
old
age.
Is that what makes people's behavior,
You know what? I think it's how you handle the energy, honestly, because, I used to do a lot of ritual work, obviously, around the moon and lunar cycles, and it's always about amplification. It's never about something negative. I think people can't handle energy, whether it's coming from the moon or the stars or the sun or each other. I think they have a hard time grounding energy, running energy, and understanding what the universal flow of energy really does to the cells and the atoms and the DNA. I mean, I think one of the best ways to calibrate that is Tai Chi or Qigong exercises that will help calibrate people to energy in general.
Well, why is there this increase this every 28 days? There's this increase of energy from the moon. What is the moon doing different that it isn't doing the other 28 days?
Well, maybe it's what people are focusing on during that time. Maybe it's all the groups of people that focus on the lunar cycles. That could be part of it. Amplification. I know the moon amplifies the emotional body without a doubt, but I mean, when I look at the moon itself and the energetics associated with it, and then I go beyond the spectrum. We were talking about a mirror between worlds, and we were talking about there's something there beyond it all, and it's not like we're worshiping a false deity there, but there's something happening that's not from here. It's artificial. So.
Well, maybe there's just a natural 28-day pulse cycle.
Possible. It's
That's
under
the only
intelligent
thing.
control.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me. That the moon just pulses every 28 days, and that's its natural cycle.
Get this.
Because otherwise, it's like logic tells me that the moon isn't doing any damn thing different that it's done the rest of the 28 days.
It sure looks pretty though, doesn't it, Jim?
Yeah, it's nice to look at.
I predict it's going to break orbit with this Earth. That's my prediction. I know you laugh, but I swear it's going to happen.
I got a better one than that. What if, somebody pulls the switch on this whole virtual reality and the whole sky scrolls back and we see a completely different universe?
Well, that sounds about right, too, because you're dealing with multidimensional perspective, and also with ascension, all these dimensions are basically getting closer and closer, and then there's the parallel bleed-through effect, which means, like, when they talk about Planet X, for example, it could be actually existing in, and I've talked about this before, a dimension parallel to this one, cloaked by frequency. And, of course, a lot of people are looking for it in a different way, but perhaps they're not looking with multidimensional sight and understanding the different dimensional frequencies and spaces. And we're dealing with a multiverse out there. It's not just like we're just dealing with one linear world, even though we've been programmed to believe and see it. I mean, we're dealing with this huge multiverse. And now the mainstream scientists are trying to catch up, of stuff we've already known for how many centuries have the mystery schools known all this data? And all of a sudden they're trying to talk about it like they've just discovered it, which is almost upsetting. But don't get me started with them.
Well, it makes me think there was a movie that was out, several years ago called The Island.
I think I saw that.
Ewan McGregor, and he was in this containment, this holographic containment, and he thought he was on an island or something, and then the program broke or something, and he suddenly realized he was in a cage. He was essentially in a cage, and the reality he thought was all around him was totally artificial.
Well, it's interesting. You remember that movie, The Cube? Or was it I can't remember if it was on Sci-Fi Channel or not. Do you remember The Cube?
No.
People were trying to escape this prison. Well, you should see it. It's pretty interesting, but it reminds me of something like that where everything is literally like everybody's trapped in this man-made hell, and they're trying to get out.
Well,
but
and they think it's normal that it's this is normal reality when in fact it's a construct.
And that's the thing, is it can be taken down so easily. Really can. It's just about shifting gears in the mind and actually starting to put the energy in motion. I mean, you know how to do this. I know how to do this, and I'm sure the majority of listeners understand what we're talking about. So
another great movie that really shows this scenario is Dark City.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually spot on.
That is one of my favorite movies, and Dark City. And it's like whoever wrote that was very tuned in, because I think he really sees this reality for the absurd containment that it really is.
Right. Well, there are other things happening behind the scenes. I mean, that's another thing too. Once you start getting interfaced with all this different technology or different species, whatever they are, then you start to get a bleed-through effect of their reality as well. So that's how I can dive into the AI very easily, because of where I've been with the interface. So I understand that. I can see things beyond the AI that most people wouldn't notice, because I understand the technology. So I can see why, if people were interconnected with, say, an extraterrestrial race, they would get a bleed-through effect in consciousness associated with that species and their star systems, wherever they come from. I mean, that's another thing, too, that I don't think has been factored in on some level with a lot of these people.
Well, what was interesting about the Dark City is that the controllers, the extraterrestrial entities that were keeping the humans trapped, were themselves dying. This is the end. They were in this evolutionary dead end, and they were trying to understand, how humans were the way they were, and it's like, well, and even at the end of the movie, the humans were still incomprehensible to these entities, and of course they were all dying, and the humans decided to change the city to a totally different reality.
And you can do that through consciousness. If everybody was up on a higher level of a collective, I'm sure we could change the world overnight, without a doubt. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, and I've mentioned this before on previous shows, but the transhumanism, the whole idea behind it, I believe, is to prolong man to a point where he will not become extinct, and that they're actually creating a select group of people in that transhumanism so that they can keep ascending with whatever they are, instead of going extinct like what they assume the regular masses will go through. So that's my own take on it.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to cheat evolution.
Well, I think they are, but the thing is, they're going to get trapped, and that's the entrapment factor, because this machine technology, however you could say it thinks on its own and it's consciousness oriented. You're still dealing with a machine, and you're not dealing with universal flow and consciousness. That's one thing I've noticed about it, is that it feels like, if I had to describe it, it feels like you're encased in metal. I mean, like you're just trapped in something that won't let you breathe spiritually.
Yes.
And I don't believe that's healthy. But, I believe in symbiotic relationships, too. Now, we've talked about extraterrestrial craft, where people are able to navigate these crafts with a symbiotic connection to the craft itself, where they become one with the craft through consciousness. That I understand, and that is perfectly acceptable. It's this other stuff. It's this Franken experimentation they're doing, like Frankenstein, where they're using a technological advancement to control, manipulate, and, of course, I think they're eventually going to be in a self-destruct course.
Yeah, well, you got people like Ray Kurzweil, and I think he's like the poster boy.
Is he still alive?
He's the transcendental man.
Is he still alive, boy. Jim?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he ever was alive.
Yeah, well, I don't. Yeah, that's another thing too. Yeah.
Because he's like he wants to develop technology where we can actually download our consciousness into computers, and we can live in a whole variety of virtual realities. And so it's like, it sounds to me, from what we're discussing here, it's like, well, maybe he's one of those reptilians who wants to escape into multiple levels of virtual reality, so he never has to evolve. He can always flip from one virtual reality to another to escape evolution.
Well, that's possible, but I will say one thing. The masses are getting calibrated already, because they're downloading, uploading into their computers their own consciousness to some degree. It's already being, how should I put it, implemented, shall we say, in a soft version.
Oh, sure.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So everybody's already calibrated to become part of this scenery. And the only problem I have with any of this technology, because I love technology, I'm a nerd too, is I like the idea of free will associated with being able to interface with technology. If I want to remote pilot a craft, I think it's great. But I don't want people trying to shut down my DNA or tell me what to think, hear, see, or speak. That's not okay. And that's what I'm seeing. And that's where it's heading. And that's why we have to be very, very careful. It's teetering right now, this technology. You have to be very wise with it.
Yeah, and I don't see that anybody's being very wise with it.
No, because they're not enlightened. That's what, once again, we're talking about consciousness and expansion in consciousness. And I don't care what divisions these people are. If they're not advanced in consciousness, well, it's just not going to work the way they want it to.
Yeah, and they're saying that, you have these proponents of artificial intelligence and transhumanism who publicly state that, if you don't want to become a cyborg, then you'll go, the way of the woolly mammoth. You will become extinct.
Yeah, I saw that video, by the way.
Because this is the technology curve of the future, and that if you don't want to be a cyborg, then we'll put you on a cattle farm somewhere.
What's so funny is though, when you transfer out, you're gonna ascend anyway. That's the thing. We're multidimensional beings, so we're designed to ascend. I mean, even if we don't take our suit with us, our body, our spacesuit, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. We can transfer it into a robot, or we can transfer it into an avatar in another dimension. I mean, that's something that's not even calculated in because that's out of their control. So.
Yeah, but see, the problem here on planet Earth is that we interface with other people who look human, who are not human, who will not evolve.
Right.
Who will not, they won't reach that. They simply won't. And so it's... That's the confusing part. Is just because somebody looks human doesn't mean that they are human. Well,
the thing is, we are not human. No, there's no such thing as a human. I know this is hard for you. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe not. But we are really in suits. This is a spacesuit we occupy, and we come from other star systems and universes. We are all visitors on this world, and we go home to source when we leave. And that's not even my perspective. That's just ancient mystery school consciousness knowing. And so when I say, we can incarnate in so many different forms on so many different timelines, and then we can incarnate on other planets. And maybe you've been an extraterrestrial on another planet, Jim, and then you incarnate on this planet, and you lose memory of that lifetime. I mean, it can get really complex. So I try not to pick apart too many things. What I do see is corruption here. I do see something controlling and manipulating to such an extent on this planet it's becoming noxious. And it's running deliberate interference to control and shut down the DNA, which is not acceptable because universal law allows for free will, and they're violating this, whatever they are. And it needs to stop, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, I believe I agree that we, I still think that there are certain humans that are more indigenous. Yeah, they're spiritual beings, but they're more or less indigenous to this planet.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But there's other extraterrestrial entities that inhabit human form that are not from this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other human entities that are such sociopaths.
Can't everybody just get along, Jim? That's my question. I mean, I don't care what sector they come from. Why can't everybody just kind of chill and get along? That would be my ideal dream, because I do like Zen moments. I really do.
Well, I think that that's probably where we come from. Because here we are talking about this as though if it was a desirable ideal, but I think there's people out there that wouldn't even have the concept of what we're even talking about.
Now we might have lost a few people. I don't know, but you know what? This is really we're talking about very valid information here. People would pick up on it. I'm sure they do. We have smart listeners here. So, but yeah, I mean, it's well worth being said. I mean, you can't just close your eyes to what's happening around you and hope that it's just going to fade into this nice little fuzzy bubble, because it's not going to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, fuzzy bubble.
Yeah, or fuzzy lollipop, whatever. Which one you prefer, I guess, is the word. Are you still painting, by the way? Not to change subjects too much, but
when I have a spare moment, when I'm not writing or editing video, I like to paint. I still have. That's a great relaxation diversion for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like your UFOs, and that's why I think you should do more of that.
I don't do many UFOs anymore, but I do like to do. I still like to do land. I started out doing landscapes, southwestern landscape paintings, and to just relax and just have fun. I'll crank one of those out every so often.
Yeah, I may have to get you to paint me one of those crafts. I was talking about the other day off air. But that's
Yeah. You want to tell
I don't know. You knew what kind of craft it was. I didn't.
tell the listeners
Oh,
about?
I don't know. It was just an interesting visual I received one night.
Well, it's more than interesting. It's very rare that you even have dreams.
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't even. Yeah, it was very, very rare. It was a projection of some kind, but it was a craft. Yeah, and it came out of the clouds. And
so why is Solaris BlueRaven dreaming about flying?
I don't know, dude. But I think it's because I've been interviewing a lot of people lately about it. So, but when I described it to you, you knew what it was. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, the fact that we both had similar dreams, many years apart, but the fact that we both saw the same thing and felt the same way about it, I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, that could be part of that Dream Pool Collective as well. So, but whenever those things show up, I mean, you have to ask, it could just be trickster stuff. So I don't take anything seriously anymore, especially after where I've been with the artificial intelligence, because I know programs can run and things like that. But I found it very interesting, and it was very, let's put it this way, it was really beyond 3D. So.
Well, the flip side of that, it might not be tricksters.
Very true. Well, if that's the case, that's my craft. I want it. Yeah, I was making a joke the other day that I said, I want my spaceship. I want my craft. Where is it? Where's my remote craft? Okay, and there were no, by the way, there were no extraterrestrials in this craft. It looked like it belonged to me. So.
Oh, it belonged.
Well, I would say it looked like it did because there was nobody there. It's just me.
Well, yeah. Did you hear what you said though?
I said it looked like it belonged to me.
That's very interesting. That's very telling right there in and of itself. And so you could have said, well, it was a drone.
No, it wasn't a drone. I know that.
It was a drone that was, didn't need a pilot. You didn't say that, did you?
No, yeah. Well, Jim, you'll have to paint me a picture of it. But yeah, so I'll elaborate on it again sometime. I didn't really talk too much about it, but it was very interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people have had interaction like that before. So, but that was my first real hardcore, visual. It was more than let's put it that way.
And you never had a UFO dream before with that style of craft?
No, not like that. I've been in when I was inducted, I saw a lot of things with the control room and the types of technology they were using with me and things like that I didn't really go into detail with. It's in my book, but I never saw anything like what I saw the other night. So it was quite interesting.
Was it in the daytime?
No, it seemed like it was more at night or twilight, and it was there were clouds above the trees, and there was a green light, and then the ship came out of the green light.
Okay.
It's pretty wild.
Because when I saw it, it was broad daylight.
Interesting.
It was like the middle of the day.
Wow.
And I looked up in a blue sky, and there it was. And well, like I said, it was black and it was menacing. I felt menacing, and I wanted to run away from it. And when I tried to run, my feet were like lead weights. Couldn't run.
That's interesting. How old
and
were you?
I only had that dream one time when I was a kid. Okay. But when I saw this stealth bomber rolled out of its hangar there at Wright-Patterson or wherever, or Edwards Air Force Base, I thought, that's it. That's what I saw. It was just the B-2 bomber. Looked just like it.
You didn't see any personnel or anything, did you?
No, it wasn't close enough for that.
Okay.
But it was kind of headed my way, and all I wanted to do is turn and run and get away from it.
It sounds to me like go ahead.
Now you have to put it in broader context, because I had other dreams about flying saucers and sparkly, silvery flying discs in the sky that I just loved. I just love to look at those. But this black thing, this black bat wing plane, I didn't like at all.
That's really interesting, and you have to ask if you're. I guess you're kind of a contactee, then, aren't you, or no?
Oh no.
I bet you are. People who have visuals like that are usually connected in somehow. And then, of course, look at your path. I mean, what put you on this path of UFOs?
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
I mean, seriously, what happened there?
Something must have happened.
I guess you don't remember.
I got tweaked one way or another. I used to
screen memory.
I have great dreams about seeing UFOs or flying saucers. They weren't UFOs; they were flying saucers. there were silvery flying ships in the sky over the wheat field behind my house in Ohio. It was like, and I'd never felt menaced or frightened by them. They always looked beautiful, just, dazzling, sparkling, kind of objects in the sky.
Not every kid sees that when they're growing up. I'm sorry. They just don't. So there must be something to that. I never had a UFO encounter as a kid. I was obsessed with water towers, though, but I never had a UFO encounter.
Whoa. Well, what about... Why water towers?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to love my binoculars. So I used to keep them stuck to my face all the time. My mom used to tease me about it. But I had this obsession with this local water tower, and I'd always look at it through my binoculars, and then I'd freak myself out because it was so close and it looked like a ship, right? But it was kind of like War of the Worlds kind of thing. So, but I used to get weirded out looking at it, and then I couldn't stop staring at it with my binoculars. So it was just one of those weird little obsessions.
That sounds like a screen memory there. It's like
I don't know.
Okay, there's something embedded in that symbology of that shape that
possible
is locked in your consciousness somehow.
That's very possible. I guess I'll never find out. Of course, I was inducted in 2004, so that was a whole different ball of wax. But yeah, very interesting. Well, I don't know if they make water towers like that anymore. So how do we get on this subject anyway? My goodness, boy, we went into a different direction altogether here, didn't we?
Yeah, we slipped into another dimension here, I think.
We did. Well, let's talk a little bit about, what do you want to talk about the Hollow Earth? I wanted to kind of touch base on that because haven't you done some research on the Hollow Earth or no?
I've done some research on Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd is one of my favorite lines of research, and actually, I have a blog about him that I have not posted on my website as yet. I should do that.
Oh wow!
But yeah, Admiral Byrd is an enigma also, and he was also a 33rd degree Freemason. Hello. And that nobody ever talks about that. So, what's that all about? Why Admiral Byrd had been, when the Nazis went to the Antarctic in 1938 to annex a portion of the Antarctic for Germany and rename it Neuschwabenland, Admiral Byrd was invited to join them on that expedition. Did you know that?
Very interesting.
He declined, but being that he was such an expert on polar exploration, the Germans invited him to come too. And who was mounting the exploration but the Nazi SS, which is a secret society, and they were honoring 33rd degree Freemason Richard E. Byrd.
Very interesting.
So,
well, they have all the cool toys over there in Antarctica,
They got the cool toys, yeah.
They used to. I don't know if they still do anymore.
Well, which relates once again back to your dream. And the craft that you saw sounds very much like the Horton Flying Wing.
Right.
The Horton brothers. Well, the Horton
But a more advanced, it's a modern version, yeah.
Well, who were the Horton brothers? So these guys were great. They were pioneers on their own in Germany because they were playing around with flying wings. They were developing flying wings. In fact, they had developed a supersonic stealth flying wing during World War II that it could have literally won the war against Britain had they used it, had they deployed it, but they didn't.
And then you have to ask, why did they stand down? Why didn't they deploy it?
And whatever became of the Horton brothers? Well, golly gosh, they left Germany and went to Argentina, and they were building supersonic jet planes for Juan Perón in Argentina back right after the war, the early 50s.
Wow.
So, it's these. So much of these Germans seem to have a second life, post-war in Argentina. Right.
Well, they were brilliant. I must say they were brilliant, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Also masters at mind control. So, yeah. Well, they never lost the war. That's the bottom line.
Well, if you're going to do it, you got to do the whole enchilada, which means you have the technology and the mind control. And
right. They had it all going.
Everything. So.
And they still do, apparently.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
from what I've seen and what I've experienced, I'm pretty sure that that they're full speed ahead in breakaway societies. So without a doubt.
Anyway, well, Admiral Byrd is an interesting character. Did you want to ask any more? Do you want to pursue Mr. Byrd?
Well, I wanted to kind of touch base on the Tiamat, if you wanted to talk about that, because we have 15 minutes left, plus or minus. So it's up to you. We can go in both directions. I don't care. Your call. You're the guest.
Well, I invite people to listen to go back and listen to Michael Tessarian. Mm-hmm. He has 9 hours of lecture just about the Atlantean, the history of Atlantis, and the secret societies and all that, just in and of itself. So it's a huge volume of material. But it's Michael Tessarian, and his background his research is Celtic history. So he looks at these themes and these mythologies from a Celtic point of view. But he tells the story that according to the Sumerian legend and according to Zecharia Sitchin, Tessarian believes that Zecharia Sitchin was accurately translating the Sumerian texts, that he was not embellishing them at all. However, he believes that the Sumerian texts themselves were deliberately misleading. Mm-hmm. That's the Sumerians themselves were actually covering up a bigger story. And what he describes is a galactic war that actually chased the Anunnaki here to planet Earth 50,000 years ago. And that the great civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria were the result of the Anunnaki's colonies here. The Anunnaki quarantine here. They developed these civilizations. Well, also out of this great galactic war, he said that originally there was another planet, huge planet, in the orbit between Mars and Jupiter that was a water planet. Mm-hmm. And the inhabitants of Earth virtually worshipped this planet because it was so bright. It was like a second sun in the sky, because it was a water planet, so it would reflect much more sunlight. And it was 15 times bigger than planet Earth. So imagine a huge planet out there, that water planet that's reflecting light back to Earth, and you'd probably see it in the daytime, mm-hmm. being so bright. And at this point, this is a point in history when Earth did not have a moon. That's another thing that bothers me. Did not have a moon. So, and one of the things they speculate that this was called Tiamat. Mm-hmm. According to Michael Tessarian's version, this planet was called Tiamat. And while Tiamat was destroyed in the Galactic War, and now the fragments, the asteroid fragments the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is actually ice. It's water. It's frozen water from this huge water planet that used to orbit beyond Mars. And he also speculates that actually Mars may well have been one of the moons of Tiamat, and that Mars was not necessarily an independent planet to begin with. Yeah, Mike Barra touched on that too. He was talking about that when he was on my show. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I believe that. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, and if you look at the tremendous scarring mm-hmm. on the surface of Mars, it looked like something really nasty. Something really nasty happened out there that really tore up the surface of Mars. Right. Well, Jim, I think something nasty happened through the entire solar system. If you look at Uranus and everything else, I mean, something almost ripped like a fabric in the space-time. I mean, right through. Right. So. Tessarian also makes the point that because the local configuration of the planets in our solar system were so screwed up, and the orbits of the planets were so screwed up, that the ancient peoples had to make a radical study of astronomy and astrology just to make a record of the changes in the energies of the astrological energies of the planets, which had been drastically altered, and the renewed, or the erratic orbits that the planets were now, following.
Mm-hmm.
So you see planets that retrograde and this and that, and planets seem to have strange, their orbits don't seem to be quite what they should be.
Right. Yeah, it's like something was reset.
Like, yeah, the whole solar system had to be reset.
Well, what comes to mind is synchronization, like something was way off. Yeah.
And there are those that to help stabilize the Earth orbit was one of the reasons why the pyramids were built.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kind of spin-off effects because of this war, but his main thrust is that it's the biggest problem was that the Anunnaki reptilians were stranded here.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to listen to all 9 hours, Michael
Wow.
Tsarian, it's a huge story,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes into a lot of detail.
Yeah, well, I think it's well worth listening to, without a doubt. Once again, I think people are putting pieces together. Not that everybody has the exact correct data, but I think that there is something going on which is similar to other pieces of information elsewhere. So
Sure, and he's not the only one. You have Joseph Farrell, who's written
Mm-hmm.
a whole series of books about the cosmic war and the Giza Death Star and
Right.
all this. That he is essentially following in even greater detail.
Mm-hmm.
In much more intricate research, the fact that there was a galactic war in this quadrant of the galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
in our solar system, and it's not necessarily over.
I don't think it's over at all.
This is the capper.
all.
It's not over, and you have to realize that from if the original galactic war was 50,000 years ago, and they had atomic weapons and so forth, in 1945, when we started to light off atomic bombs all over again, that sent out an electromagnetic pulse at light speed throughout the universe, stating or announcing that yes, indeed, the Anunnaki have regained their weapons technology here on this planet. So you have to ask yourself, it's like, well, if planet Earth has been carefully monitored ever since that original galactic war, and suddenly, the other guys realize that, these guys are ready to start trouble again, is there a huge blockade fleet waiting outside somewhere in our solar system, just waiting for the Anunnaki to try to make another breakout?
Well, supposedly in the Black Space Program, they are having wars going on, or
Exactly.
supposedly. I can't confirm
Exactly.
or deny that. Mm-hmm. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right?
Right.
But I've heard about it. But you mentioned off air that the moon is a monitoring station, and I kind of get that too.
Well, it's certainly a possibility.
Well, I think it is.
Yes.
I think it's the ultimate eye in the sky, personally.
Uh-huh. Well, okay.
So-
Yeah, but whose eye?
Well, it's been here for a very long time, but then it.
All right, Stellar. Whose eye does it? Who does it belong to?
He who controls the eye controls everything. Well, the funny thing is, it's not ours. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's an Anunnaki or anything like that. I think it's another race.
If you thought the reptilian Anunnaki were busy little beavers getting ready to make war again, wouldn't you want to have a way to monitor them?
Well, that would be a great monitoring station if you ask me, and it does remind me of the tall whites.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
We are getting ready to wrap this up in about 5 minutes. Can you believe that, Jim?
5 minutes.
Time
okay.
flies in the illusion of time with you and I, doesn't it?
It does.
We go everywhere in the universe. But
Yes.
it's always fun. I always enjoy
Yes.
having you on.
Yes.
But I want to make sure everybody gets a way to contact you. If they want to contact you, let's give them a rundown insofar as your website goes and anything else you want to share.
Well, you can access my website at the webmatrix.net/Jim Jim Nichols UFO /index HTML. Or you can just do jimnicholsufo.net. That's JIMNICHOLS.net. Or you can go to UFOTV YouTube, and you can watch my videos. I've got UFOs Reconsidered, The Day After UFO Disclosure, The Aldebaran Mystery, Secret Societies and Flying Saucers, Ancient Aliens, The Archons, Nibiru 3, Return of the Gods, Secret Base on Mars, and The Aeon of Horus, The Occult History of NASA.
Awesome. And they are excellent videos, by the way.
Yes.
Awesome work. I applaud you. You know, they need to be in a book. I'm a book freak, so I'm always going to promote books.
Okay.
Come on, Jim. Write a book.
I need a publisher.
Oh, you can do it self-publishing. It's the best way to go.
I do. Yeah.
But that should be in there. I think, anyways. But yeah, awesome stuff. And I want to thank you again for being on tonight. It's been wonderful to have you here with us.
As always, thank you so much.
You're so cool to talk to. I can go on and talk to you, and it's really fun. So one more thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. What is your impression of the black holes and the simulation of black holes? We kind of touched on this off air.
Only in the context. I'm not a physicist, and that's technically beyond me. But the idea of I find it very intriguing that I think the Nazi bell was actually a preliminary attempt at creating a wormhole. It was not intended to be a flying machine. It was intended to create a much more powerful electromagnetic vortex in order to attempt making a wormhole portal, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I believe that the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, I think, is a much larger version of that same attempt to create a dimensional wormhole. And I think that's, and Simon Parkes is very blunt about it. He says they specifically, the Anunnaki reptilians specifically built that to try to escape planet Earth.
That's very interesting. Well, miniature black hole comes to mind, especially with the CERN that you were talking about a little bit there, for certain. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting, anyways, and I've been picking up on that also with the whole technology over there with CERN, and of course they like to discount black holes, but I don't at all because I think that's what they're generating over there as well. I did want to say, please stay tuned for who do we have coming up here? I think it's Researcher on a Mission with Dr. J coming up next, so please stay tuned for that. And I do appreciate everybody tuning in tonight here at Dark Matter Radio Network. I hope you all enjoyed this show tonight. I certainly do, and it's always fun talking to you, Jim, for certain.
Oh, thank you, Solaris. You're very sweet.
Well, it's true. And hey, belated happy birthday.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much.
Did you finish your chocolate cake?
No.
You didn't?
Nope. I make it last.
That's wonderful.
I had some more of it today, but it's like, no.
Are you going to be speaking anywhere anytime soon?
Actually, I have no immediate plans. I will be scheduling another one of my Quantum Horizon meetup sessions here in Tucson in January. Nice. But I don't have a date scheduled for that as yet.
Cool. So you are still doing those groups then?
Yeah, that's why I got to get this video finished so I can show that at my next meetup.
Very good. Excellent. Well, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with tonight? I think we've got, maybe 30 seconds plus or minus.
Just, keep looking up, and the truth is out there, and I wish everybody, the very best for the holidays.
And likewise, yes, you have a nice holiday, Christmas, whatever you celebrate. I'm into every celebration out there. So what was it they used to call on Seinfeld? Was it Festivus or something like that?
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want to celebrate. Have fun, be nice to each other, and just do a good job being good people. So
just be good to each other. Everybody be good to each other.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it. And thank you, Jim. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.